normal, super amazing person, but she's also here because she's a super amazing coach. And so we are really honored to have her here, really lucky to have her here, honestly. And so basically what we're going to do is throughout the week, she's going to be coming around working with whoever's coaching on the floor, which creates a lot of opportunities. So this morning we kind of did a flow with Lauren. Lauren did amazing. And like kind of one of the big pieces of why Lauren did so well this morning is she's receptive to feedback. So like you're going to get grilled. Like she's already pointed out several things that I need to improve on. I haven't even took the floor yet. So it's like there's a lot of things that that are needed to be a great coach. And so that's why she's here, is to kind of highlight those things, but then also to give us tools to be able to actually do those things. So Lauren did a really nice job today. There was constant feedback kind of in between the classes, and then she was able to implement those things, and Denise was able to kind of build on that. And then Mindy came and observed that, and were you able to pick up anything? Yeah. So like in the short time that she was here watching a class, like you could fill a notebook. Like, I mean, this was my notes on one class of Lauren's this morning with Denise. So like there's so much content and learning opportunities here. So the more available you are, the more you're going to have opportunity to learn. So I don't want to talk too much, but this is Denise, and she's going to do these little mini lectures here throughout kind of the week. So this time is a really valuable time if you're able to be here. So cool. Anything else?
No, you upset Jacqueline though.
I know. I often do that. I forget to put her in group chats and things too.
Like, I don't think I'll ever forgive you.
Yeah.
Are you the one that removes yourself from group chats?
No, I wasn't added.
Oh, you're the other way.
He
Yeah.
forgot me.
I have people that will do group chats. It's so fun, and then all of a sudden you'll just see Austin removed himself, and then we'll just add him back. You know, Austin, add him back. Anyway, guys, thanks for having me. A little background on me: I played international soccer. That was my life, soccer. I just loved soccer, and then CrossFit found me, just as Lauren said in her questionnaire, that it found her, and I just fell into it, and I fell in love with it, and I didn't really know how powerful it was when I got into it. I don't think I understood that it was a life-saving program, and the level 1 for me changed my life. I realized, not in that moment, but as I've been coaching these level 1s, that's what I do for CrossFit. I do the level 1s, level 2s. The level 1 is not just a course for CrossFit trainers, it's a course for somebody that needs a new lease on life. Like, if you can spend 2 days in a room full of people that just genuinely care about each other. You don't get that a lot out there in the real world. It can be a pretty ugly place. You just bring somebody that just needs a little bit of love, a little bit of care, and being in the right environment, it can change their lives. So the level 1 for me is this pivot point for people to really start to go out there and share a powerful message. And then the level 2 is one of my favorite courses. And who's done the level 2 in here? So you guys probably went there, right? And after day 1, you felt like you've been sledgehammered over the head, like, I'm a horrible coach. But it's designed to pinpoint areas of improvement, and not to just give you pats on the back, because we don't get better when we're constantly being told what we're good at. Now, it's important that we do highlight that, but we're there to pinpoint these weaknesses and then give you some drills and stuff to go forward. And it's a tough course. It's a tough course to take, and it's a tough course to teach, because a lot of the time you don't know what's coming in. So out of everyone here, who's full-time? Who's full-time coaches? Yeah, and who's at part-time? Okay, and who's like, I call them the pinch hitters. It's like you do 1 a week or a couple a week. Yeah. And we're all coming from different areas of life. Some have got kids, some have got no kids, some have got a lot of kids. Some of you guys have another full-time job. And when we do the level 2, we have to develop these relationships so that we can really get to some stuff pretty quick. Because it's no good me giving Mindy something based on her life outside of here. And what's your name, sir?
Houston.
And Houston, giving her something different if I don't get to know who they are. So the beauty of the level 2 is that we can spend a little bit of time there learning a little bit more about the coach, and it's great. And then you go out there and you do your thing. But there's a big gap between the level 1 and the level 2. And for a lot of us, and this is Tyler, it's like, I just did the level 2 because I needed to keep my qualification current. And that always breaks our heart, because we're like, oh man, this course is so good, like, show up. But the reality is, it's expensive, it's time consuming. So generally we get people that just need to re-up, and then when they're done, they wish they'd come sooner. But that's like a 5-year gap. So you do your level 1, you're essentially water hose, right, with all this information, and it's great, and you're like, yay, and it's fist bumps and high fives. And then you're like, all right, go out there and coach, good luck. And then we'll see you in 5 years and we'll tell you all the things you've not been doing well. And I'm like, wait a second, there's nothing in between that. So Austin Maliolo and myself, who I worked with at Reebok, we created the coach development program, and it's been running since 2015, maybe 2016. And it started with just this kid coming up being like, can we watch your classes? And it's evolved to where we're at now, which is here, this affiliate package, 3 days, 3.5 days with you guys to just come and help you continue to do some of the great things that you're doing and give you some things to think about moving forward. And it's not very often that you get somebody like Tyler that will invest in bringing somebody in to do this. Honestly, it's amazing. So when he called me in December, I was like, heck yeah, I'll come. You know, we went back and forth or whatever. So that's essentially the journey. So this is something special that we're going to go through together. And when we're done, you'll have my cell phone number. You reach out whenever you want. There's never a bad time. And this won't just be the end journey. We'll continue going. Cool? So my why for coaching is initially I was a soccer coach and I loved it. I loved fitness and I kind of fell into it. But I learned over the years that helping somebody be a little happier that day is the best reward you can get in life. And that's what we do in the gym. If they can leave a little bit happier than when they came in, have some fun, get a little better, learn something new, we've done our job. Now that's hard to do and it's a lifelong journey. But that's the surface level of my why. I'm in the business of service to others. So when I'm planning a class, I'm always thinking, what do they need? Not what do they want. Yes, goals are important. Tell me why you're here. What's your why? But what do they need? And I'm the expert on that. So when I'm planning a class, that's what I'm thinking. I'm like, today's a wall ball. I talk with Lauren a lot. All right, what's the wall ball like? What do I think they need today? And there's this whole system you can go through to finally get to something that brings purpose to what you're doing. So there's a lot of different spectrum of coaching, from just memorize stuff, get out there, make sure no one dies, and it's great. Right? That's what you do when you're first learning, all the way to going through these 6 criteria of an effective coach, which we talk about at the level 2, which is what I want to write down here on the board, and you guys can just take a picture of this after if you want. But in order for us to get better, we have to have a platform or a foundation for metrics. So we have these 6 criteria that you can pinpoint what areas you need some improvement and where you're strong. Do you guys know the 6 criteria? Yeah, there's an order that I'll go in, but shout them out for me, Jacqueline.
Teaching.
Teach. Yep.
Seeing.
Yep.
Correcting.
Correcting.
Group management.
Yep.
Presence and attitude. Demonstration.
I never spell presence. There's like an English way and an American way, so I do P&A. And then demo. Okay, great. Now, the goal of this little mini lecture is not to give you a 45-minute lecture on what all these are, but it is important that you understand how we define them, and I'll use the CrossFit Level 2 definitions because they're amazing, honestly. But teaching is the ability for you to bridge the gap between what you know and how you communicate what you know. So it's 2 parts. There's knowledge and communication. So when we talk about knowledge, you guys give me some examples. What is knowledge in the CrossFit gym?
What you learned at your L1.
What did you learn at your L1?
What an air squat is.
What an air squat is, like the mechanics of an air squat, right? How do you do it? We've got points of performance, we've got hips back and knees out and heels and all that good stuff. So mechanics, what else? Think about anything that you might need to know in a CrossFit gym. Technique, yep, so ways to do things, right? What about common errors? That's helpful to know, right? Some common fixes, root causes of faults. And that's all the, if you want to call it tangible stuff, like you can kind of see it, but then there's this other level of experience. Back in 2009, 2008, when I started doing CrossFit, my friend was like, oh, you should teach CrossFit at some point. I'm like, yeah, I'll do it right now. He's like, no, you don't get it. You have to do it. You have to do it and know what it feels like in order to be able to give that to somebody else. And of course, I was stubborn. I'm like, I do this stuff all the time. I squat, put arms over my head. I'm like, I lunge, and he's like, no, you don't get it. And I didn't get it at all. Now I get it. So you need to have experience of what this stimulus feels like and how to scale people and how to modify things based on the function of the movement and the range of motion. And there's all these orders of how you can modify things, injuries. And then even on the other side, the next level of coaching is the relationship building. So it doesn't matter what you know if you can't connect and relate to the person in front of you. And you guys have the hardest job ever. It would be a lot easier to take a group full of elite athletes, even though it might be scary, and coach them than it would to coach your classes that you have here, because they're all mixed abilities coming from different walks of life. So getting to know the person. This is all knowledge. And I'll tell you right now, everyone in here probably has a lot of knowledge. And meaning we're generalists, right? Jack of all trades, masters of none. So you're not going to be an expert in any one thing, but I could say, hey, talk to me about the push press, the snatch. Hey, what does Fran feel like? What is a girl workout? What is Murph? You'll be able to tell me this stuff, but this communication thing is the hardest part. And what you've got to do is take everything you know and then distill it down into what needs to happen today in this class with this person at this point in the workout or the lesson. That's hard. And that's why I would say simple is not easy, because you need to have the knowledge of like a PhD level, professor, and then talk to a 5-year-old. That's really hard to do. So what we end up doing is just saying a lot of stuff, which is all right, but it's not helpful for them in the moment because they only ever catch the last word that you said. So teaching is something that we're going to talk about actually in this lecture. We'll talk. Seeing. What is seeing? Well, seeing is being able to distinguish good movement and bad movement, or sound mechanics and unsound mechanics, but in gross form, so big rounding of the back, and then subtle form, a slight loss of lumbar. In static positions, which means we're not moving, and then dynamic phase positions, which means we are moving. And there's a system that you can use to see. It's not as hard, obviously, when you've got a couple of people that don't move super fast, but what if you have 25 people and you've got them moving fast? The ask becomes a lot more demanding. So some key terms here is sound and unsound. And what do you think is important here? This knowledge piece. What is our knowledge of good movement? Are we assessing everybody based on the best mover in the gym? Because that might be the best mover in the gym, but is that the best movement that we're striving for? And if you have somebody in your gym that moves just like a beautiful unicorn, angel, butterflies and rainbows everywhere, use them. But if not, pick something like on CrossFit.com, there's like James Hobart and Julie Fouché, they've got the red shirts on and they're doing that's pretty much close to the gold standard. So you've got to have knowledge of actually what good movement, excellent movement looks like. Gross and subtle faults. It's not hard to see gross errors. They're big. It's something that you look in your face with it's one of those, right? You're going to run over there and you're going to correct it. And if you're looking in the right place, you'll definitely see it. This is harder though. But I'm going to tell you right now, and this is one of the reasons why I'm here actually. Tyler says he never forgot this at his level 2. He said, you're not showing me the coach that you are. I said this to him. I'm like, you're not showing me the coach that you are because you don't have a system to identify movement. Because if I say, hey, look at those feet, you'll tell me that there's weight in the toes. But you didn't see it without me there. Why? And it's not because you don't see a fault, it's because you're not looking at the right place at the right time. And you can only look the right place at the right time if you have a plan. It always comes back to your plan. So we've got gross and subtle faults. Now we have these static and dynamic phases, which is the easy one to see when they're not moving. Static. We've got a setup and a finish position where everyone's in the same spot, and then we've got a dynamic position, which means they're moving. And we're going to come back to this too. But whenever we've got static, depending on your ability to see fast, you can look at anywhere between 1 and 5 people because they're not moving. But you have to know where you're looking. How do you know where you're looking? It's in your plan. You purposely created a progression to see this one position. And we'll go through the wall ball after, just to show you, because that's the workout we have today. How many people can you see dynamically? What do you think?
I was like 1, 2.
1, yeah, 1, 2, maybe, depending on if they're lined up right, but let's just call it 1. And it's here where we get distracted. So if I say go, and then my eyes do this, all that's telling me, it's not telling me that you don't see, it's telling me that you're not disciplined and focused on just staying with that person for that rep the whole time. And you'll be like, wow, I see it. The next part then is fixing. So we want to see an improvement. We want to see an actual measurable change where we're decreasing risk. And these are always the 2 things you're going to be looking at: decreasing risk and increasing performance. A significant change in their movement. This is hard. There's times even now, I've been in CrossFit for 13 years doing it, coaching it 12, and I'll still sometimes look at somebody and I'll be like, I have no idea what's going on over there. I don't know how to fix them. And then what do? Go on over and I manually fix them because that's how it's the easiest way to fix. But it's hard to correct people in the moment. So we have some different styles, right? We've got verbal. Verbal is what? Telling them what to do. Very short, very direct. Body part, right? But knees out, heels down, faster, slower. And there's some layers on that. Voice inflection, making sure that you're loud enough, but you're also tempering your voice, so you're not just monotone the whole time. There's so much more to verbal than just saying something. Visual is what?
Watch me showing them.
Yeah, watching you, showing them. And you don't even always have to, your level 2s for you guys that did it, we did this thing where we're like, hey, you're doing this, and I want you to do this. It doesn't have to be that black and white, but you can be like, hey, Mindy, that's a visual cue. Little more expensive on the coach because you got to move. You have to get to the location where they can see you, or else I'm like, if I'm over here and I'm like, Jason, and he's like, looking back, that's not good. So it's a little more expensive in terms of energy that's spent on the coach. And then the last one is tactile, which is this physical touch, right, where they have to move towards an object or move away. The most expensive cue because you have to be right next to them. So my challenge to you guys for correcting is to figure out, where do you gravitate towards for your comfort zone? Are you verbal? Are you visual? Are you tactile? They interchange. Verbal and visual are usually together. But I'll tell you right now, all right, here actually, verbal, I'm going to put just $1 sign because it's not that expensive. As long as you have a good voice inflection, you know the name, you can verbally cue anyone from anywhere in the gym. That's why it's important to know names. Visual, it's a little more expensive because you've got to move, and you also have to have awareness of your movement. So if you're like, hey, you're doing this, but I really need you to do this, they'll be like, there wasn't any change. So you've got to be able to really exaggerate, like I did with Lauren today. We did a drill where I had them just stand and then press. So I'm exaggerating that straightening of the legs before the press. And she said, well, what if they start stopping? Like, oh, well, tell them I'm exaggerating it, but it can be fast. But you sometimes have to exaggerate something so that they can clearly see it. Because who are your members? Like
Average Joes.
Yeah, but what does that mean? Like, who are they? Like, where are they coming from?
The teachers from school.
Teachers.
The professionals from...
They work at a desk, they work at a gas station, I don't know, the local restaurant. They're not trainers. So something that's super easy for us, oh yeah, straighten your legs and then punch your arms over your head. It's not that easy for them. And they do that once a day, where you guys are coaching a lot of classes. Just remember that they're not trainers. Even though you see them every single day, they're not thinking about becoming a trainer and learning that way. They walk in there who knows what's going on outside the walls of this gym? Are they having issues with their loved ones? Has something gone on in their life that's been traumatic? Did they get a new job? Did they just have a new baby? Are they coming here for playtime? Yes, yeah, this is their playtime. They get to come and have fun and relax and be whoever they want. So they need you to guide them. And I use this example all the time. You've got people in your classes, you're doing a snatch day. Have you ever seen them be like, and you're like, stop! Wide grip. They go narrow. And then they're like, you've been coming here for 3 years, Cara. Snatch wide. And they're like, you think I remember any of that stuff? Like, they'll say this stuff to you because they're just here to play. So, visual, it's really important that we contrast those two things. And then obviously your tactile, like I said, is the most expensive. Easiest to fix, because you're basically manually adjusting them and putting them where you want them sometimes. But if you've got 20 people in your class, you're moving all over the gym to try and help them. So know where you think you need to improve in there. And then your group management, these will be a little quicker. This speaks to your lesson plan. And the reason why we're lesson planning is because we're trying to optimize the experience in the gym. And why we lesson plan is because we're looking at the workout itself, how long it's going to take, where do we need to prioritize time, how many athletes might come into class, what is the general plan I want to satisfy the most people, not your outliers, equipment, spacing, safety, injuries, all this stuff is lesson planning. And the best coaches, and I don't mean the best as in they are the names you hear in the community, I mean the ones that care the most, lesson plan. Every single day. And it doesn't have to be, I'm a bit of a perfectionist, it's one of my flaws. It's like, I'll go out there and I'm like, I must execute this plan right to the T. And that's not the point of the lesson plan. The lesson plan is supposed to actually give you freedom so that you have breathing space. Hey, I've got this general plan of where I'm going to go, when I need to move on. I kind of know where I want the focal point to be today. But at any moment in time, if it goes off the beaten path, it's okay, because you've got your pivot point to come back to. It's supposed to give you a luxury to kind of flex, not pigeonhole you. Right? Perfection's not what we're looking for. If you're doing something perfectly, you're probably not getting the right result and the right challenge, because nothing ever goes that way in a class. So lesson planning, and then attention to the athlete. Okay? This means, and this is a great assessment for whether or not you have too many people in your care to take care of. And I worked at Reebok for 10 years, and then I recently moved to CrossFit New England, and we had big classes at Reebok. We would have 40, 50 people classes sometimes. We'd have like 3 or 4 coaches on the floor, and we'd have one person leading and the others were sharking around. And even when the classes were bigger, like 20, we'd set it up to a point where people all knew where they were going and what to do. It was like Pavlov's dogs. It's like, get your bars out, we had numbers. Hey, columns 1, 3, and 5, grab your barbells. It was nice. And I went to New England, and they had a different layout. And the layout was smaller, and they had a lot of people, like 20 to 25 people, and I struggled. Like, it was really hard for me. For 3 months, I was like, I don't know how to coach, because I had to completely change how I approached the members, the space, the equipment, and all these things. And I was realizing, I was getting to the end of the class, and I'm like, gosh, there are 5 people I didn't speak to once. And I'm like, that's not okay. So I made it a point, and I said it to the class. I said, look guys, my job is to take care of you. And that can mean a lot of things, but I'm gonna keep it simple. If I have not had 2 or 3 conversations with you across the 60 minutes, grab me at the end and tell me. And if I had people tapping me on the back and they were saying you didn't talk to me, I went back to my plan and I looked to see, and so I'm always going back to the plan. And that meant a lot to me that I got around them all. So you have to find opportunities to do that, and we'll talk about that in more detail. But that's, as your charge to your people, is that you take care of them by scaling them, checking in on how they're feeling, and letting them know you're there. So group management also speaks to attention to athlete. I'm not going to write anything on the board here, but I'll go here first. Demonstration is twofold. It's how you move. And the goal is not that if you don't move perfectly, you can't be a good coach. there are movements in CrossFit that I struggle to do, and I can still coach it. There are coaches out there that are some of the best coaches I've ever seen, and they're not playing in the NFL, right? But they're doing their thing. But you do need to have awareness, and you do need to be okay with demoing something and not looking great, and letting them know, hey, here's where I'm struggling. When I squat, I've got X, Y, and Z. Trying to work on it. Seeing this, but do this. Okay? And then the other demonstration is the lifestyle. Arguably more important. What are you doing in the gym and outside the gym that's going to inspire the people in your care? And that doesn't mean you've got to be perfect. You don't have to go out and start smelling lettuce and macadamia nuts and ripping the legs off the deers and what. We're not all cavemen. In fact, we were laughing back in there, like, remember when paleo was the thing and we were like, I need almonds and deli meat and apples. That's all I can eat. I don't know if you remember that, but that was me and my friend Dave. We would literally be like, sugar, no, devil, And it was not the right application of nutrition. It's like, you need your rest days, but it is important what you're eating. If you're out every night slamming donuts and drinking beers and having burgers and fries, like that's not our lifestyle. And CrossFit is fitness and nutrition. Arguably, nutrition's more important than the fitness side. Because they'll come in here and they'll bust their butts. For how long? 30 minutes max? And then what happens? 23 and a half hours to go mess it all up. So it's important that we understand that, yeah, live life, but you got to negotiate. You can't just eat anything you want all day long, but maybe if you know you're going to have a hot weekend with your friends, you got to be good Monday through Friday, and then maybe do your thing and get back on it. So it's a constant thing, but it's important that lifestyle. I love a good donut, but I'm not going to always slam donuts on Instagram all the time. People come here because they want to improve their health, and this should be a place where they can come and not have those temptations. At New England, one of the things I really liked was that they wouldn't allow sugar and sweets in the gym. And when I first got there, I was like, these people are crazy. Like, what was someone's birthday? And, someone brings cupcakes in. I'm like, hey. But it was actually really interesting because they're like, well, there's a birthday every day. So if every day there's like cupcakes and cakes on the counter where these people are coming to change their lives, because they get all that temptation out there that they can come here, we want them to have that. So it made sense in the end, but it's important. That demonstration is really important. And your presence and attitude, they're different. Attitude means like you're a positive person, right? You approach life like the glass is half full kind of thing. Presence is different though. Do you have an idea of what presence is? Do you have an example?
When you have a good presence, you demand respect.
You earn a respect.
Yeah.
What does that look like? Like, I'm walking off the street and the class is going on. What should I see as a person off the street? Confidence, yeah. Does that mean though yelling? No, it doesn't mean that you have to be a big yeller and everyone listen to me, this is my blah blah blah. Everyone over here now in 24 seconds. That's not presence. That's a style of instruction. Presence just means that when you talk, they listen. Or you can walk into the room and within like 30 seconds, you're like, okay, that person's in charge. So you have to find out who you are in that world. Are you a louder person or are you a quieter person? And if you're quiet, that's great. You're gonna have some group management techniques to get their attention. And do you know what always works best? The moose ears. It's like the last person to do moose ears gets 5 burpees. And you just stand there like this. It'll catch on. Do it in one of your classes like there's 25 people, just stand there like this. And then someone else will go. And then someone else will go. It's really funny. I do it at level 1 all the time. And I will not stop until everyone's got me. Yeah, there's all kinds of group management stuff, so you don't have to be loud. I'm pretty loud, I'll just yell like, everybody! And I was telling Lauren I have 2 commands. I have bring it in, and I have a listen up, or eyes and ears on me. And I'll tell you more about that later. But they're my 2 commands, and that's kind of my way of crowd control. But hopefully now you have an idea of when we're talking about effectiveness, this is what we're measuring ourselves against. And the goal is like being an athlete, the 10 general physical skills, right? You're going to be weaker and stronger in some areas over others, but go headlong in the pursuit of your weakness and just know it's not going to be comfortable. But by being vulnerable and open, not only are you going to be better yourself, but you're going to help the people in your care. So there's all kinds of books out there, but honestly, your ego is your enemy. And anytime you guys do feedback, you should try and do it in an open forum like this, because there's nothing more humbling yet exhilarating than being told, hey, you need to be better at this in front of your friends. Because they also have that. So that's what we're looking at. Any questions on that? No. Is it simple?
Yes and no.
Yeah, it's simple from the terms of, all right, well, we teach to communicate what we know. When we're looking at good movement versus poor movement across really bad movement and like subtle movement. We have some different phases that we want to address. Correcting just means when we give a cue, are we making them better and what's the follow-up? Group management is going to help you be successful in all of this. So I like to use this little triangle. Down here is actually group management. Teaching, seeing, correcting. So if you can't teach, hey, I want you to do this, you don't know what to look for. If you teach too much, you're going to look for everything. You teach to see, and then if you can see it, you go to correct it. And how that's going to help you is by having a really solid amount of group management. And it seems so simple, but it's actually pretty challenging. So I'm going to erase this, and I'd like to chat to you guys a little bit about the teaching element and the group management element. And we'll start with group management. And this is just basically how to put a lesson plan together. And the level 2 guide, even if you are a level 1 coach, start studying the level 2. It's like the CrossFit Bible for coaching. If you just mastered that level 2 guide, you'd be amongst some of the best CrossFit trainers in the world. A lot of the times though, we get bored and we forget about the power of the fundamentals. And in the level 2, do you guys remember the second lecture? It was called Common Movement Themes. And there was a demonstrator and there was a lecturer, and we went through 8 themes: midline stabilization, posterior chain engagement. Do you remember that? I know it might be a little foggy. There's 8 of them, there's 8 themes. And if you're looking for themes in any movement, you're going to set yourself up better than if you just look at movements individually. So an example is, the themes are midline stabilization. You don't have to write this down. It's core to extremity, balance in the frontal plane, posterior chain engagement. We've got sound hip function, active shoulders, full range of motion about a joint, and effective stance and grip. You can take those 8 themes and just look for them in any movement. The movement is just the vessel, right? Muscle up, we see midline stabilization, we see core to extremity. Air squat, we see midline stabilization, we see core to extremity. So we'll flip-flop the thought process, and if you're looking for themes, you can teach any movement in the CrossFit space, just positions and shapes, you know? So let's go to the lesson plan.